Welcome back. In this particular session, I will be talking about different types of database. Okay. So having said this, typically in a major classification of database, we will talk about two major classifications. One centralized database, another is the distributed database, and then we'll talk about different types of database or database itself. Already we have talked about the hierarchical database, the network database. Also, we have talked about the relation database. There are other types of database which are available in the market today, right? So typically, major package, that's why I've been saying because, two major way through which, database are been handled. One is the centralized, okay, and distribute. So if you see the diagram itself, okay, and centralized database, you can see one particular server, database server is there, okay, it can be connected to a certain ATMs and all through some telephone lines or direct lines or something like that. Okay, and then you're withdrawing the whatever money is there. Okay, and the entire thing is in the central part. Okay, in a single storage itself. Okay. Now here, if you see in the distributed, okay, you have database distributed across different geographical location. So you can see one Tokyo, you have a database server in a Chicago itself. You can have a another database server in a Melbourne itself. We have a database server. Okay, and then all are connected to some kind of network and all. Yes. So having said this, in a centralized database, all the data are stored in a single site. As you can see, it is all stored in this particular single site itself, right? And allows for greater control over accessing and updating normally, because it's a direct accessibility through to the particular database itself. Okay. But one of the most important thing is that is a vulnerability to the failure, as it depends upon the availability of resource at the central site. Why? Because it is already depend upon this. Okay, suppose if it is not working, right, and then everywhere this going to be a failure itself. So that's what the it's given. So the account information of the customers to the particular branch and office. Okay, and then we have the ATM connected to that particular branch, and the customer can easily withdraw the money itself and all. Okay, but in a distributed database, if you store, okay, the database stored on several computers, maybe it's a personal or mainframe, we can see database stored in several machine itself. Okay, and it is distributed. Okay, system is across the geographical location, and they communicate through the high speed network and all this thing we've already seen. Okay, certain network itself. Okay, and as I told you, they are geographically separated and managed. Okay, so you can see here in Tokyo, somewhere in Chicago, somewhere in Melbourne. So this Australia, we are talking about US, we are talking about Japan and all. Okay, right, and they are separately administered. Okay, right, really separately administered. So this is one particular unit itself, this particular one another unit, and this is also another unit itself. Okay, right? And distributed have no interconnection. Yes, absolutely. So a slower, interconnection because all distributed across the various network itself. So I talked about this. If you think about some bank, okay, right? MNC Bank, were distributed across the world itself, okay, and each having certain branches, right? So we can see this is nothing but a complete, distributed environment. So having said it centralized, you can see it is fixed in a particular location from where you can get connected with itself, okay, easily, okay, availability. But the thing is that if it goes down, then no, it becomes a problem. But in a distributed, it is distributed across various location. You can see the location connected through certain network and all. So typically, due to this, there may be some kind of slower because of the network and all. Okay, and each of this is distributed. Data are distributed across the various geographical location itself, and it is managed there itself. Okay, so you have a each geographical location, you have a certain machines, right? You can see these machines available itself. Okay, so having said this, different database available: the hierarchical database, the network database, relational database, object-oriented database, graph database. You have the cloud, the SQL database, and time series database. So these particular courses, we don't have that going through more details about it. Okay, right? Because your cloud database, you can go, you can study more deeper into it. NoSQL is a very fast thing. Time series database also in a different perspective. So I will try to, I was trying to make you understand that these are the different type of database available in the market, and I will show you also different database which are very popular across. So if you see this hierarchical database, okay, as I told you in the in the previous my session also, it is stored in a hierarchical fashion. So I have one IBM, information management system, okay, from the IBM itself, IMS, okay, and then window registry is another one of the software that is there, right? And then in the network database, we have that integrated data store, IDS it is called. Another it is IDMS, integrated database management system, okay, and then RIMA database manager, okay. These are the certain, what is the database which are based on, network, okay, network model itself, right? This and IBM, IMS, Windows registry are based on the hierarchical, model itself. So then we have certain, relational database, right? My very popular Microsoft, SQL Server, all of you knows, okay, Oracle database, MySQL, okay, Postgres, very popular right nowadays and all, okay, right? So all what we will be discussing more on this particular course on this relational, database itself, okay. Object-oriented database, which are based on, the aspect of programming, object-oriented programming, okay. So where a data datas and the what do you say, logics, okay, the entire thing is connected through the concept of class and object itself. So some of the popular, is a Wakanda and then the object store itself, okay. Yes, so relational database, we have MySQL Server, Oracle, MySQL, so Microsoft SQL Server, Oracle Database, MySQL, Postgres, Great SQL. Okay, object oriented, we have Wakanda and object store. Okay, so next we talk about graph database. Graph database is typically it is based on the concept of graph theory itself. Okay, so another big what is it things to understand itself. So there are some database itself is data stacks, enterprise graph or Neo4j. These are the most popular graph database itself. Then you have cloud database, which as I was saying, you can understand the meaning itself. The cloud. Okay, most popular. Okay, is the Microsoft Azure SQL database itself, Amazon, relational database service. Okay, you can heard about AWS and all. Okay, then you have the Oracle, autonomous, database itself. So we have the graph database, which I've told about. It is based on the graph theory, and in a cloud database, which was the Microsoft SQL Server database, AWS, and or Oracle autonomous database itself. Typically, when you say about cloud, it actually run on in a cloud computing platform, and this particular database is been provided as a service. Okay, so cloud you have as a infrastructure, we have a as a platform, you have a service, software service itself. So this particular database is provided as a service itself. So we have from the Microsoft Azure. Okay, from the Amazon itself with Amazon Relation Database and Oracle itself, the Oracle, autonomous database. The three big, organization, having this cloud database itself. Okay, right? Okay, then we have the NoSQL database. Okay, so NoSQL database typically, it is also called as non-relational database. Typically, in the relational database, we have certain schema, okay, predefined schema through which we try to define the databases. But when you NoSQL, not no kind of any kind of no kind of schema itself and there. Okay, and it is quite popular. Sorry, I just this let me remove this because okay. So right? One of the most popular, database itself. One is the MongoDB, okay, the Amazon Document DB, Apache Couch, DB, and this particular database is based on document database, right? No columns or row type of things. It is based on JSON. Okay, storing is a document itself. Okay. Then we have another popular, database is Amazon DynamoDB, okay, Redis, which are based on key value database. Okay, certain key will be there and associated with certain values will be there. Okay, so these are this Amazon, DynamoDB and that. And then we have another popular, database called as Cassandra and Google BigQuery, which are based on, all on the columnar, database itself. So NoSQL database is very popular. So typically we have the Facebook, Twitter, and all these things are all running with NoSQL database itself. So if you get an opportunity, I always suggest that you can go learning this uh, NoSQL database. Typically, market scenario, if you see MongoDB, Amazon, okay, Dynamo, Cassandra, Google, they are very popular and mostly used by the IT industry itself. Okay. So having said this, lastly we have the time series database. Okay. So popularly, time series database itself are InfluxDB, ExtremeDB, and Druid, Druid, right? So actually, time when you say time series database, it is something which the entire data are stored, okay, in the form of some time series, okay, right? So you have certain data points which are associated with some kind of timestamp, okay, with data associated with some kind of timestamps. Okay, so that's what are the time series database. Very popular are the InfluxDB, ExtremeDB, and Drill. So having said this, so in this particular session, we have talked about different types of what do you say different types of database itself. So have we started with the two major classifications, centralized and distributed. We have talked centralized where one particular location we have that particular database itself. Okay. Drawback is, the well is due to the failure. If one of the system, because only in one server the entire data is stored. Okay, distributed database, you're distributed across various location. We can see, okay, many kind of, it can be distributed in some computer, personal computer, mainframe, and all geographically, it is there connected to some kind of network, but it may be, slow itself. Then we talk about different type of database available like hierarchical database, network database, relation database, object-oriented database, graph database, cloud database, NoSQL, and time series. And then we have seen the various types of, soft what you say the database available based on this particular hierarchical network and all. So we have IMS, window registry for the hierarchical. We have IDS, IDMS, RIMA for the network. Then we have the Microsoft SQL Server, Oracle Database, MySQL, Postgres for relational. Then we have Wakanda Object Store for the object-oriented database. Then graph database, we have DataStax, okay, Enterprise, Neo4j, Cloud Database, popularly three major organizations, Microsoft, Amazon, Oracle with Azure, Microsoft Relation Data, Amazon Relation Database Service, Oracle Autonomous Database. Then one of the most popular, database, which doesn't follow the non-relation database, no schema, okay, is NoSQL. Then we have seen MongoDB, Amazon document DB, Apache Cloud, based on some concept like, based on document itself. So you have this kind of document database, then a key value database, columnar database, okay, like Cassandra and Google BigQuery. And lastly, we have seen certain database, okay, where the data are being stored, okay, with associated with some kind of timestamps, right? Like these are called the influx DB, the extreme DB, and root. Okay, so I hope it is all of you are very clear with the different type of database itself, and you can explore all this particular database more into it. Okay, so thank you, and if you like my videos, kindly share with your friends. Also, ask your friends to subscribe my video. Thank you so much.